All right, so are you ready for this?
Hit me.
Okay, let's do a deep dive on this idea of the sublime, but with a twist. We're going to connect it to the woman question in 19th century English literature.
I like it. I'm intrigued.
Yeah, so, I'm sure you've had that experience where you just encounter something
Ah,
so vast and powerful, it just like blows your mind.
totally.
Like when you're,
Like nature.
yeah, like staring out at the ocean or standing on a mountaintop.
Absolutely, yeah.
That feeling, that's kind of what we're talking about with the sublime.
Right. It's about awe and reverence.
Yeah.
Intense emotion, right?
Yeah, and like feeling
Flying small.
small, but also like connected to something bigger.
Exactly, yeah. That's the paradox of the sublime.
Yes,
Right.
exactly.
Yeah.
And so we're going to explore how this idea of the sublime intersects with, all those debates about women's roles and rights.
A woman question.
Yes.
Yes.
The woman question, which was especially heated in the Victorian era.
Right.
Because, women were obviously experiencing these powerful emotions and ideas too.
Of course.
But their voices were often stifled by, all those societal expectations.
Totally. And we're going to see how these ideas play out.
Yeah. And we've got some really fascinating sources to work with.
Okay, lay it on me.
Okay, so we'll start with Thomas de Quincey and Confessions of an English Opium Eater.
Oh, De Quincey. A classic.
I know. Then we'll venture into Jane Austen's Northanger Abbey.
Okay.
And then we'll tackle Charlotte Bronte's Jane Eyre
Love it.
and Thomas Hardy's Far from the Madding Crowd.
That's quite a range.
I know, right?
Yeah.
But what's really interesting is how, these writers,
Yeah.
despite their totally different styles and stories,
Uh-huh.
they all kind of use the sublime to explore these really deep questions
yeah.
about what it means to be a woman in a world that's constantly trying to define and limit your experiences.
Absolutely. It's like they're using the sublime to push back against those constraints.
Yeah. Okay, so let's start with De Quincey, right?
Yeah, okay.
This guy was basically using opium to unlock these intense, almost transcendental experiences.
He was a pioneer of inner exploration in a way.
He was conducting his own personal experiment with the sublime.
Exactly. And he went deep, really delved into two distinct types of the sublime.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah. There's the delightful horror, term coined by Edmund Burke,
Okay.
which is that feeling of being terrified and thrilled at the same time.
Wait, like watching a scary movie?
Yes. Exactly like that.
Okay.
You get that rush, that adrenaline.
So De Quincey was getting that same rush from opium.
He was. And he even gives this incredible example in his book.
Oh, tell me.
He describes this encounter with a mysterious Malay who shows up at his door one day.
A Malay?
Yeah, and De Quincey, paints him in these almost demonic terms, playing on all these anxieties about the unknown, the other.
Right.
And even though he's physically safe, De Quincey is shaken to his core. That unsettling feeling, that's pure Burkean sublime.
So it's not even a real danger.
No, it's all about perception.
It's the idea.
The idea of danger.
That's so wild.
It is, isn't it?
Okay, so what about the other kind of sublime?
Right, that would be the dynamic sublime.
Okay.
Which goes beyond just fear and thrill. It's about being overwhelmed by vastness, by power.
Yeah.
Right, things that completely dwarf us as individuals.
Okay, I think I'm starting to get it. So that feeling you get staring up at the night sky.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That feeling of insignificance, but also this strange connection to the universe.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
So where does De Quincey find this dynamic sublime in his, opium-fueled experiences?
Well, he finds it in some pretty unexpected places, like in his encounters with the impoverished.
Really?
Yeah, and in his dreams, particularly this vivid dream he has about Wordsworth's daughter.
Wordsworth's daughter.
Yeah, and these experiences, they force him to confront suffering, death, things that highlight his own powerlessness.
Right.
But there's also this sense of transcendence, like a glimpse into something beyond the everyday.
So it's not just about the intensity of the experience.
What's deeper than that?
But how our minds grapple with it, finding meaning in it.
Exactly. And that's a key difference between Burke and Kant's approaches to the sublime.
Oh.
Burke is all about the immediate sensation, that gut-level reaction.
Right.
While Kant emphasizes the mind's ability to process these overwhelming experiences.
Yeah.
To make sense of them.
Okay, so two different flavors of the sublime.
Exactly.
The thrilling fear
Yeah.
and the mind-expanding vastness.
Yeah.
So now I'm curious to see how Jane Austen tackles this in Northanger Abbey.
Oh, Austen, she's a master of satire.
Right.
Yeah.
So we've got Catherine Morland,
Huh.
this young woman completely obsessed with Gothic novels,
Yeah.
expecting all sorts of spine-tingling mysteries at Northanger Abbey.
The Haunted Abbey.
Right.
Yeah.
So is Austen giving us, like, straight-up Gothic thrills, or is there something more going on here?
Well, Austen is way too clever for that.
Yeah.
She's playing with those Gothic conventions, those expectations of the sublime that Catherine brings to the story.
Okay, yeah.
Remember all those exaggerated details Henry Tilney uses to tease Catherine?
Oh, yeah.
The dimly lit chambers, the whispers of family secrets, even hinting at hidden torture devices.
Right.
It's like she's poking fun at those over-the-top Gothic tropes.
I love that.
It's so Austen.
She builds up all this suspense, leading us to believe that Northanger Abbey is a hotbed of spooky secrets.
Exactly, but then boom, plot twist.
Right.
She pulls the rug out from under us.
Yeah. And the real horror in the novel
Yeah.
isn't some supernatural entity lurking in the shadows,
Nope.
but the very real, very oppressive figure of General Tilney.
General Tilney, the true villain.
It's brilliant. Austen takes this genre that's typically obsessed with ghosts and creepy castles and just flips it on its head.
She turns it inward.
Yeah. Instead of some external threat, the source of fear and unease is rooted in, the social structure, like the patriarchy embodied by General Tilney.
Precisely.
Yeah.
And that's where Austen's genius really shines through.
Yes.
She shifts the sublime from the physical setting to the social sphere.
Okay.
The real threat to Catherine isn't a ghost.
Yeah.
It's the power dynamics that restrict her freedom and happiness.
Okay, so Austen is definitely playing with our expectations here.
Oh, absolutely.
But why do you think she chose to, subvert this traditional, often masculine association with the sublime
Right.
by centering a woman's experience? What's she trying to tell us about the lives of women in this era?
That's a fantastic question. And I think by making the threat to Catherine social rather than supernatural, Austen highlights how women's lives were already filled with very real dangers and limitations.
Right.
It's almost like she's saying, hey, women don't need ghosts and goblins to feel threatened. They're already dealing with enough in their daily lives.
Right, exactly.
And in this context, the sublime becomes a way to expose those anxieties and illuminate those power dynamics.
So Austen is using the sublime not just to entertain,
Right.
but to make a powerful statement about the restrictions placed on women in the 19th century.
Absolutely. And by doing so, she's already starting to touch on those complex issues at the heart of the woman question,
Okay, yeah.
which we'll be exploring in more depth when we delve into Jane Eyre and Far from the Madding Crowd.
This is getting really interesting. I can't wait to see how Bronte and Hardy take on these themes.
Oh, just wait. It gets even better.
Yeah.
So speaking of defying expectations,
Yeah.
let's move on to Charlotte Bronte and Jane Eyre.
Okay.
Bronte takes those Gothic elements we saw Austen playing with,
Right.
and she dives even deeper,
Yeah.
using them to expose the very real limitations placed on women in Victorian society.
It's amazing how Bronte takes this genre,
Yeah.
typically filled with gloomy castles and supernatural beings,
Right.
and turns it inward.
It becomes psychological.
Well, yeah. The setting becomes a reflection of Jane's own internal struggles.
Exactly.
Her fight for autonomy in a world that wants to keep her confined.
Precisely. Instead of Haunted Abbey,
Right.
have the Red Room,
Oh, yeah.
this incredibly oppressive space
Mm.
where Jane is confined as a child.
Right.
It's this symbol of patriarchal control,
Yeah.
but it also represents Jane's own stifled emotions,
Okay.
her passionate nature that society tries to repress.
Right. And then there's Bertha Mason,
Ah,
the infamous madwoman in the attic.
right.
She's often seen as the symbol of everything Victorian society feared and repressed in women.
Especially female sexuality and rage.
Exactly.
It's fascinating how both the Red Room and Bertha are juxtaposed with those more traditional Gothic settings.
Oh, interesting.
It's as if Bronte is saying, look, the real horrors for women aren't lurking in some faraway castle.
Yeah.
They're right here within the very structure of their homes and society.
It's like she's shining a light on the hidden anxieties and power imbalances that women were facing every day. Exactly.
But Jane, she refuses to be defined or confined by those limitations.
Oh, absolutely. Jane is fiercely independent.
Yeah.
Constantly pushing back against the expectations placed on her.
Yeah. Do you remember that line?
Oh, which one? There's so many good ones.
Women feel just as much as men feel.
Oh, yes. Such a powerful declaration.
It's a declaration that women deserve to have the same opportunities and freedoms as men.
Exactly. Equal feeling, equal rights.
Yeah. That line always gives me chills.
Me too.
It's such a powerful statement about the need for equality, for recognition.
Yeah, it's about being seen and heard.
Yes. And it's not just her words, right?
No, she walks the walk.
Yeah. Jane takes action.
She does.
She rejects St. John River's proposal.
Right. Even though it means sacrificing financial security.
Yeah, because she refuses to settle for a life without passion.
Or true connection.
Right.
She knows her worth.
Exactly. And even after she marries Rochester,
Yeah.
she maintains her own sense of self, her own agency.
She doesn't become some meek, submissive wife. Right. Which is so important because it challenges that Victorian notion of women being completely absorbed by marriage.
Right. She's not defined by her relationship.
Yeah, Jane's happiness doesn't come solely from being Rochester's wife.
Right.
She continues to grow and evolve as an individual.
Now let's journey to Thomas Hardy's Far from the Madding Crowd,
Okay.
where we meet Bathsheba Everdeen.
Bathsheba, such a strong character.
Here we have a woman who inherits a farm and decides to manage it herself.
It's incredible. Bathsheba is strong, capable, and determined to succeed on her own terms.
She's a force to be reckoned with.
But as you can imagine, she faces a lot of pushback
Oh, absolutely.
from a society that wasn't quite ready for a female farmer.
The critics had a field day with her.
Really?
Some called her coarse or unladylike,
Wow.
clearly uncomfortable with a woman stepping outside those prescribed domestic roles.
Right, and Hardy doesn't shy away from showing Bathsheba's vulnerabilities, does he?
He doesn't know.
He uses these beautiful metaphors in complex situations to highlight the unique challenges she faces as a woman navigating a patriarchal world.
He does, but he also shows her resilience, her strength, and importantly, her growth.
Right.
Bathsheba makes mistakes, yes, but she learns from them.
Yeah.
And in the end, she finds a kind of happiness that balances independence with companionship.
It's not a fairy tale ending, though, is it?
No, it's not a simple happily ever after.
It's messy, complicated,
Yeah.
and feels very true to the complexities of the woman question in Victorian England.
Life is messy, isn't it?
It really is.
Even in literature.
And speaking of reality, the Married Women's Property Act of 1870 plays a significant role in Bathsheba's story.
Absolutely. This act, which granted married women the right to own and control their own property, was a huge game changer for women like Bathsheba.
It's like a crack in the foundation of that patriarchal structure we were talking about.
Exactly. It gave them a level of financial independence that was previously unimaginable.
So even though Bathsheba faces all these challenges, Hardy's novel hints at a changing legal landscape.
It does.
A slow but steady shift in the power dynamics between men and women.
Progress, however slow.
It's like a glimmer of hope amidst all the complexities. So we made it.
We did.
Wow, what a journey.
It really was.
We explored the depths of De Quincey's opium-induced Sublime,
Right through Northanger Abbey.
navigated the playfully subversive world of Northanger Abbey,
Yeah.
and witnessed the struggles and triumphs of Jane Eyre and Bathsheba Everdeen.
Strong women.
It's incredible how these seemingly different works, they all kind of speak to each other, you know?
I think so.
Shedding light on these timeless questions of power, identity, and just like the human experience.
The human condition.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it's not just about understanding these individual texts, is it?
No, it's bigger than that.
What's fascinating is how they help us grasp the broader cultural anxieties of the 19th century.
Right, it was a time of upheaval.
Right. The world was changing rapidly.
Absolutely.
Industrialization, scientific discoveries, shifting social norms.
A lot of uncertainty.
Right. It was a time of both immense possibility and deep uncertainty.
Exactly.
And I feel like the Sublime, with its focus on intense emotions and those like mind-blowing, overwhelming experiences, really captures that sense of grappling with the unknown.
Trying to make sense of it all.
Yeah. It's like those writers were trying to make sense of a world in flux where old certainties were crumbling.
And new possibilities were emerging.
Exactly. And, you know, the woman question running through all these texts, it highlights how women were both participants in and subjects of this cultural shift.
Absolutely.
They were experiencing those sublime emotions, challenging societal norms,
demanding a greater role in shaping their own destinies.
It's like those women were saying, hey, we're here, we're feeling all these things, and we're not going to be silenced anymore.
They found their voice through these writers.
Yes, and their voices continue to resonate today, reminding us that the struggle for equality and recognition It's an ongoing process.
Cog evolving.
Yeah. So, as we wrap up this deep dive, I'm left pondering this question.
Okay, shoot.
How do you think the experience of the sublime might have differed for men and women?
Interesting.
In the context of 19th century societal norms, we talked about how Austen and Bronte kind of reimagined the sublime,
They did?
connecting it to those social and psychological realities of women's lives.
All right, they brought a new perspective.
It makes you wonder how many other voices and perspectives were silenced or overlooked during that time.
That's a question we should always be asking.
It really is.
Not just about the 19th century, but about our own world today.
Whose voices get heard, whose stories get told.
Exactly.
It's like those 19th century writers are prompting us to look deeper, to question those assumptions, and to seek out those unheard voices.
To broaden our understanding.
Yes, and to recognize that the exploration of the sublime, that quest for understanding and connection, is a journey that continues to unfold,
Always unfolding.
revealing new insights and perspectives with every step we take.
So keep exploring.
Yes. So, dear listener, I hope this deep dive has sparked your curiosity and encouraged you to revisit these texts with a fresh perspective.
There's always something new to discover.
Keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep diving deep.